Today, we're going to be taking a look at SearchWP Pro, a plugin that allows us to search and filter the data that we create throughout our WordPress website. Now, this is especially important if you're dealing with websites that use advanced custom fields, custom post types and so on, business listings, car sales sites, those kinds of things. So join me as I take you through how we set this up and cover the basics and see how does it stack up against my preferred option, which is SearchWP and FacetWP. Well, join me and I'll show you how to set everything up right now. So if you want to grab yourself SearchWP Pro, if you don't have it already, and follow along with what I'm going to do, you can grab that from searchwpfilterpro.com. No affiliate, no kickback, nothing whatsoever. It's just a plugin that I get asked about a lot as a viable alternative to FacetWP and SearchWP, which I tend to use more often inside the tutorials I do on the deep dives when using advanced custom fields and so on. So if you want to grab it, you can grab it. You can grab a single license for $20 or a developer's license for $75. That's an annual price, and obviously you get support and updates during that 12-month period, whichever option you choose. Now, once you've installed that, you can jump over into the dashboard of your site and you're going to see a sort of like section very similar to this. You have some options on the left-hand side. The search and filter is where all of your search and filters are stored. So when you create them, this is where you'll find them so you can jump in, create new ones, edit them, and so on. You can create a new search form, settings, license, and system status. Now this, as I say, is going to be a very simple introduction to how you would set this up in a very simple scenario. Let me just show you the scenario we're going to take a look at. If we take a look at this, I've got an advanced custom field setup where I've created a set of cars that can be purchased, and they just set up using taxonomies, normal data. We've also got prices as custom fields and so on. So if we look on the right hand side, you can see I've got three key filterable and searchable areas. We've got the general search, which will just search for the content. We've got the manufacturer's filter, which is based upon a taxonomy. And then we've got the price range, which is using advanced custom fields, meta field, to install all that data. So as you can see from the vehicles, we've got the price on each of those, we've got the manufacturer and so on. So that's the basic setup, nothing particularly complex. We've covered this in an abundance of tutorials. So come back over into SearchWP Pro. Let's go and create a duplicate now of this search filter that I've set up so I can just demonstrate how you go about doing it, the different options we have available. And believe me, there are a ton of options available, which can be the kind of downfall of this. If you've seen my videos on SearchWP and FacetWP, it's a lot easier looking on the eye and also less daunting to take a look at setting these things up, but the functionality is fundamentally the same. Okay, so if we take a look at the search and filter that I've got currently, we've named it, we've got the shortcode, which is what you're going to use to insert that group of filters, and this is the thing to bear in mind. When you have this shortcode, that applies to all of the filters and the searches and so on inside that search and filter group. And as you can see, I currently have a field list, so I've got search, taxonomy, and post meta. Those are the three different kinds of filters and searches that we have available, and you can see the results method is a custom method because we can output this in various different ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this, like I say, as the basis, and I'm going to start from scratch and go through the settings that I've used and why I've used them. So let's start off by creating our new filter set. So we add a new search form and we're going to name this vehicle filters. Now if we take a look underneath, you can see what I'm talking about when this kind of seems very daunting. It's a powerful plugin, but it doesn't really do itself any favors by making it look so complex when you actually take a look at it for the first time. Yes, all the same options are available as they are in things like SearchWP and FacetWP, and possibly even more, but it's kind of a little bit frightening if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so let's just go through the basics. You can see we've got these different tabs across the top that allow us to do various different things. The general, where we can pick and choose where we want to filter and search, how we want to do it, and those kinds of things. The display results is how we want to output that information, posts, tags, categories, and taxonomies, and so on. So let's just go through these one at a time and set up what we need to. So the first thing I'm going to say is search in the following post types. Now, because we're only filtering and searching against vehicles, I don't want all these extra things inside this. We're going to uncheck the ones we don't want, and we're just going to simply find the option that we do want, which is going to be vehicles. So again, this is one of those things that you're going to see different things inside here depending upon the plugins that you've got installed and how you've got your meta field set up and your taxonomies and so on. So don't think it's going to be identical, but you are going to see a lot of things that you'd see the same as mine, like posts, pages, and media and so on. Results per page, you can set that to whatever you want. Then the auto submit form, whether you want to have a submit button. So in other words, you can set all the parameters for the filters that you want, and only when you hit that button does it actually filter and search. Or you can have Ajax search, which is basically just a live. So whenever you check a box, whenever you type something in, it will search pretty much automatically. Up to you, like I say, how you want to do that. Then you've got your field relationships. You can see we can set the and or values inside there. If you do and, all of the criteria have to be matched to actually display results. If you choose or, it can be one or the other or another, depending upon the number of filters and searches you have. So set this up in the way that you want to set it up to find the data that you want. So for me, for this example, we're going to set this to and, because I want to combine the different filters where I want to use them. And this is the thing, you don't have to use all of the filters. You can use 1, 2, 3, 10, however many you've got. So you can pick and choose and stack those on top of each other to refine and filter out. Next thing, we've got auto enable count. So the auto enable count is a very simple way of updating the result count whenever you make a filter change. So we're going to say yes to that because it gives a nice visual representation of the data as it's being filtered out as you're going through that whole filtering and searching process. You can see once we choose that, we also get the update the search form on user interaction. So in other words, it's that auto submit kind of thing. Next up, you've got the detect defaults from current page. Now you only need to use these if you're filtering data on one page and you're outputting it to a results page somewhere else. For this example, everything is being done on the same page, so I can leave all of those completely unchecked. Now we'll come down to the available fields in a little bit, because that's a second sort of stage on this. If you've got the display results section, we can choose where do we want to display these results. Now at the moment it says as an archive. You can click and you can open that up and you'll have different information available inside here. What we want to choose for this one is custom. Once we've done that, we can then choose what's the custom results page. Now, if you're filtering this based upon the same page that you're working on, for example, the car sort of like listing page, which is what we are using, we need to put that page inside there. So I'm going to drop that link in there. So you can see there's vehicles. That's the actual page itself, which is the same as the page we're listing the vehicles on. Next up, we've got the Ajax option. So if you are using Ajax like we are, you can configure that how you want to do things. Now again, we're going to come through and we're going to make a couple of changes on here. The Ajax container, if we click on there, you can see it says the ID or the class of the container which your results are loaded into. Now, depending upon how you set up your page, if you're using a template or you're creating a specific page for this, you'll set this up in different ways. You could set it up as main, which is what was generally kind of suggested when you're setting up the hierarchy of your page. You have your header, your footer, your main, article, and so on, those kinds of things. So it's assuming that that's what we're going to use. However, for this example, I'm going to take that out of there and we're going to be using the class name for the actual posts widget. That's what we're using, is the posts widget. So we drop that in there. However, like I say, this is dependent upon how you set things up. For me, I'm just using that container. Then you can see we've got things like pagination selector, pagination type, and so on. And again, we're going to change that out from there. We're going to put in the pagination, which is an Elementor-based pagination option. So these are values that will be used as default if you're using the normal pagination that's part of the posts widget. And like I say, the Ajax container is the posts widget. Hope that makes sense. This is kind of thing where things can get a little confusing. Posts, well, we can jump over to that. You can see the kinds of things that are in there, but we're not really using anything inside this anyway. So you could leave that completely as its default. It's the same pretty much with the tags and taxonomies and categories and so on. Post meta, you can see we can add conditions inside there if we want to. So only return results which match a specific post metadata. We're not changing anything inside there. And advanced, we can take a look, and as you can see, there's pretty much nothing we need to change. The only thing I do want to set is sort results by relevance. So I'm going to click on that option. So that's the basics of the filter setup. However, we now need to go through and set up what we want to filter, and then we can go through and set up the configuration for those individual filters. So let's just say this is a draft a second. And we should jump back over into the listing so we can take a look. So this is what we're currently working with. We've got a search field, we've got a sort of filter, a taxonomy filter, and then we've got a price range. So we need to create those three types of searches or filters. Come back in, First thing we're going to do is create that search filter. So all these boxes are the different types of filters and searches that we can apply into this grouping. So we're going to grab the search option and drop that down to the search form UI. You can see that opens up some simple options, and the search form is probably one of the most simple options you have as part of Search and Filter Pro. First thing we're going to do is just drop in the heading, in other words, the title for this particular search box. And we're just going to say vehicle search, and then underneath that, we're going to drop in vehicle search form for screen readers. We're going to leave the placeholder text as search, and everything is there now, complete and in place. So we can close that down, and that's probably, like I say, the simplest. So if you just wanted to have a search and match something like SearchWP, this is very similar to what it does. Doesn't give you the same granular levels of control that we have in SearchWP, but should be fine for most people's use cases. So next in our search form, we're going to add in that taxonomy search. So we're going to grab the taxonomy option and drop that down into our filter set. Now this is a little bit more complex, but don't worry, it's not complicated. Format. So the first thing is where or what taxonomy do we want to use for this example. So we click and expand that. We'll see any kind of taxonomy inside our entire setup of our WordPress site. So this isn't specific to just working with ACF or pods or something like that. This will show you those in conjunction with any of the normal taxonomies you have throughout your site. So we're going to grab the manufacturer's taxonomy. So we chose that. Next thing we're going to do is choose the input type. So we can click on there and you can see we have 4 options. We're going to choose the checkbox option so we can check off multiple different entries at the same time. And as you can see, that now changes the information that's on the right hand side. So as we change different things, we'll see context-based information updating as we go through. Add a heading. Well, we're going to drop in the heading of manufacturers into there. Next up, we've got the search operator. Again, this works in fundamentally the same kind of way as we saw earlier on, but this is only working inside the taxonomy of manufacturers. So what we're going to say is we're going to change this to or, because we don't mind when we go through filtering, we may want to have, for example, BMW and Mercedes. So the or makes more sense in this scenario. Click on that. Then you've got 4 options on the right-hand side. Display count will put in brackets the number of vehicles inside that specific taxonomy. You can also do things like hide empty terms if you're using a hierarchical setup. So you may have different kinds of things. You may have recipe, for example, and inside there you may have lunch and you may have subsections inside there. So depending upon how you set up your taxonomy will dictate whether or not you use the hierarchical option. And the same kind of thing goes with the include children in parents. And you see every one of these options has a little I, the information hover, so it tells you what that does. Now let's just jump over to the advanced settings and take a quick look at the options we have inside there. And we're not going to set anything up, but it just shows you the kinds of things. So we've got order terms by, and we can set how we want to order these. And we've got default, ID, name, and those kinds of things. We can exclude IDs if we want to. So we may have, in this example, a manufacturer we didn't want included in this for some reason. Well, we could exclude that by using its ID. So that's all we need to do inside there. So that's our taxonomy already set up. So that's a little bit more complex than the search, but hopefully what you can see is nothing too complicated. The next option is where we go in and we're going to set up this price filter. Now for this example, we're going to be searching or filtering out information inside a post meta field. So this is a custom field that we've created in this meta information. So we can easily come in and grab the post meta and drop that into our search form. And from there, we can now choose the kind of information we want to search for. Now for this, we have 3 individual different types of meta search. We've got number, we've got choice, and we've got date. So depending upon the kind of data you have, this is where you would choose one of these 3 different sections. We're going to stick to number because we're going to work with numeric values for the price of the vehicle. Now we can choose what's the input type. How are we going to work with these numbers? You can see we've got 4 options: a range slider, number, drop down, or radio. Now for this, because we want to allow people to set a minimum and a maximum value when they're filtering their vehicles, we're going to leave it set to be slider. Price range, the heading I should say is going to be set to price range. Display values as. You can see we can set this as an input field or a plain text field. Now the input field would mean that you could use the slider and you could input values. However, we want to keep this as plain text to keep it nice and clean and simple. Finally, we've got the add screen reader text. So we're going to drop in there price range slider. So anybody that's using a screen reader, they'll know what this actual entry thing is for. So next up, we've got the meta key. And this is all basically a case of, well, what do you now want to filter? Click and expand, and you can see, depending upon the setup that you have, you will see a lot of different values inside here. However, what we are looking for is going to scroll right the way through until we find the options for vehicles. And there we go. There's our vehicle options. And what we want is vehicle price. So we're just going to scroll through until we find that. And there's our vehicle underscore price, which is the name of the custom field that we've set up. So once we've done that, we can now go through and specify things like decimal data, the formatting, and how the actual values are going to be displayed inside our slider. So decimal places, we can set that to whatever we want. So we're going to set that to be 0, or we could just say data is in decimal and we can uncheck it. You've then got the UI option. So we can say our minimum value is going to be 1,000. And our maximum value is going to be 40,000. Steps, we're going to set those to be 1,000 steps, and that's just basically the increment that you're going to use. Now you could try using the auto detect, and that's going to set the minimum based on the lowest value inside your database. And that can be useful if you have a large database with quite a large array of different prices. However, for this, I want to have a specified increment value, a specified range, so everything is in my control. We've then got the value prefix and the postfix. In other words, what do we want to put before the numeric value and after the numeric value? Well, because we're working with pounds in this example, we're going to set a prefix of the pound. Obviously, if you're working in dollars or euros or another currency value, you can set that to whatever you want. Value postfix, we're going to leave as is, and the same as the value separator, and everything else is going to be basically left as it is. So that's all the options we need to set up inside here. So we'll close this down, and we're going to come up and we're going to hit on publish. So we've now set up all the parameters for our search and our filters, ready to insert those into our page or template. Okay, so I'll jump over now into my template that's going to be the archive for listing the vehicles that's going to include that filter. And you'll notice that there's two different sections on here alongside what you expect to see, which is the vehicle listings. That's custom loop that I've created. You can see we've got this area at the top that has a little short code in it, and also to the right hand side. Now, this may be something that's kind of confusing to start off with, because you'd think all I need to do is drop in that little short code for my filter and everything is going to work. So let me just show you what happens. Let's just say we take that short code now. So I'm going to quickly come over, find the short code. There's two options. We can use this one, which is a numeric value, or we can use this one, which has the name inside it. So I'm going to copy that from there, come back over into our vehicles, into our template. I'm going to change this from there, and we're just going to put in that new filter. I'm going to hit update. Once you've applied that and updated it, you can see the filter displays in there, the search, all those things that we've set up are all displaying inside there. Now, if we come back over to this and refresh our page, you'll see all those values are inside there. We choose Audi, nothing happens. We adjust the price to make sure we've got something inside there to filter things down. We set that to 28,000, nothing happens. 29,000. Nothing happens. You can see it's kind of refreshing the page, but nothing's happening. And this is probably one of those areas which will cause a lot of confusion if you're using something like Elementor. So I'm going to jump into the documentation. When you're inside the documentation for Search and Filter Pro, if you scroll down on the right-hand side, you'll see Elementor Pro. Now, if you're using something else like Easy Digital Downloads or WooCommerce, you can go through and choose the information from there. But we're looking at Elementor Pro. So let's scroll back up to the top of the page, and you can see we've got this basic setup. We've got this little section right here that we need to put into the page to make this work. Now you need to change the value that says inside 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need to change that to the numeric value for the specific filter group that we're working with. So let's just copy that from there, jump back into our template. And what we need to do is put a text field in. So you can see it says don't use a HTML or shortcode widget. We have to use a text widget. Come back over. I'm going to grab a text widget from here. So we're going to grab our text editor, drop that at the top, and what we're going to do is we're going to just paste in that little bit of code, and we now just need to change that value inside there. So I'm going to delete that from there. I'm going to come back up to our search, and you see that the value in this example is 707. So we're going to copy that from there, come back into our template, and just put that value inside there. So we've now set up what needs to be inserted at the top of our page. We've got a filter on the right-hand side. We'll hit update. Providing everything is now being configured and set up correctly, that should now start to work. So we're going to come back out, refresh our page. And you can see the filter stayed in place for Audi, and you can see that immediately now shows the Audi. So let's just uncheck that. And you can see we've now got the price value is showing up correctly. We can expand that back out. So you can see now if we go and search for something like focus, let that filter, and you can see there's our focus RS. All the values on the right hand side update to reflect. So you can see there's only one Ford in this particular filter. So everything is now working as it should do. So what I would recommend is taking your time to take a look at this section inside the documentation for Search and Filter Pro on how to use this with Elementor Pro if you find you're running into some problems. All the things we've covered, for example, you can see we've got the Ajax container, the little bit of code that I dropped in for both the container and also for the pagination are all listed inside here. So you can simply copy and paste that over to make sure that everything is the way you need it to. Also, you can see that you've got when results get loaded via Ajax, masonry is not usually applied. There's a little function inside there you can drop into your functions PHP file and some caveats. And just check this out because it's going to get you up to speed with what you need to know. And if you find there's a problem, hopefully it will be answered inside this section. But that's what we've got. We've now got our results section. We've got everything set up, our filters all in place. We can easily come in and start to filter our data, all done inside Search and Filter Pro. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get your head around to start off with, but once you get past those initial learning curves, you should find that this is an incredibly powerful way of filtering and searching the data on your site, especially if you're using tools like advanced custom fields, using custom taxonomies, custom post types, and all of those kinds of very useful ways of building a WordPress website. So that's how we can use Search and Filter Pro alongside our advanced custom fields and custom taxonomies. How do you think it stacked up against FacetWP and SearchWP? Could you see yourself moving over to this? Have you tried it yourself? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, speaking of the comment section, if you've got an alternative you think is even better, let me know in that comment section so I can take a look and see about creating content for that in the future. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description for everything covered in this video. My name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.